Hi, I'm Dave Epstein, and welcome to this edition of Growing Wisdom back at Garden in the Woods in Framingham, Massachusetts, here with Nate McCullen, and we're going to be talking about pruning perennials. And this is not deadheading perennials. This is actually, as they're actively growing, kind of manipulating them. You're teaching them what you want them to do.
Exactly, Dave. I think people forget that, perennials are growing throughout the whole season. We have a couple months that we can help manipulate the way they grow, the form that they take on, and then subsequently how they flower when they're ready to flower.
And so we have some silphium here, and I have this actually right at the edge of the lawn between the street and the lawn. It gets real tall, so it blocks things for me during the summer. Nobody can look through, but folks may not want it that tall.
Yeah, this plant gets about 8 feet ultimately, and we can manipulate it by cutting it back. Every plant has one goal in their life, and that's to flower. So whether we cut it back now, later, midway through the season, they're still going to ultimately flower no matter what we do to it. So we can go back, cut it in at a node, and kind of stun its growth, so to speak. Get it to flower at different heights, get it to do different things.
Nate, folks may not understand what node is, so let's talk about what that is for a second.
So a node is the point on the stalk where leaves are emerging, where new growth is coming. Some plants have leaves on the same side, some alternate, so there may only be one leaf coming off the stalk, but that growth point where that occurs is where the node is.
And with a tree or a shrub, we often prune right at that node. It also helps it so that it looks aesthetically better, and also that's the point where it will start growing again, so it's a great way to kind of mask where you cut.
Exactly.
All right, Nate, so we're going to make this a teachable moment. I'm going to hand it over to you. Show me what you would do with the silphium.
So Dave, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to create a tier with these silphiums. This is a pretty thick mat here, say about 6 feet deep. And what I want to do is kind of get a cascading effect ultimately at the end. So I'm going to go into my first layer here and go back to a really low node. Just going to cut it down where the basal leaves were. Now it's going to promote growth from that. Now I'm going to go back in maybe another foot. I'm not going to go so deep this time. I'm just going to cut to the second node. And I can keep doing that across this whole bandwidth here. And again, I'm going to create a tier as it comes down. So I should be able to get flowering heights around 3 feet out of this plant, maybe somewhere around 5 or 6 feet. And then I'm going to leave the ones in the back untouched so that they grow to their ultimate height of about 8 feet. So hopefully I'll get a cascade of those beautiful yellow flowers later on in the season.
So closer to the front, you want to cut more. All the way in the back, we don't cut at all. And in the middle, you kind of cut in between.
Exactly, and this also functions as almost a natural staking process. This plant gets really tall, 8 feet. Sometimes they need to be staked. Anybody who's tried to stake an 8-foot plant knows it's not the easiest thing in the world. So by creating this tier, the plants can rest on themselves as opposed to having to put in a man-made stake. So when I was talking about nodes, these are the junctions I was talking about, Dave. So on the front layer here, closest to the front of where you want to get this effect, you can cut all the way down to the ground. That's going to stun its growth pretty good. For that mid-level, I was going up to the second node, which is the second growth point here. The other cool thing about this is when I cut it, plants oftentimes send out 2 shoots instead of 1 when they're cut. So not only am I manipulating height, I'm increasing the amount of flower stalks that will ultimately come later on in the season.
So Nate, you just did this with an area that's really a patch. It's sort of a very long patch, and we did front to back. What about a perennial, let's say a eupatorium, which grows more in a clump? It's a circle. Can I do the same thing?
Yeah, you can take that concept and apply it to really any plant. That's what's fun about perennials. We can manipulate these things really any way we'd like to. And I want to encourage people to not be afraid to experiment with their plants. It's the fine tuning of that style of gardening that can really make things fun. But for a circular thing, I would do the same row, take the same row approach, but do it in a circular motion. So cut the outer row really low, then go in a few stalks, and then do the mid cut there. And again, that's going to let the center reach its ultimate height. Then we'll have a nice mid-level and a low level, and also it's staking itself again. Really neat and really fun to do.
And one thing people may be afraid of is they're going to hurt the plant. Can they?
I would say no. Aside from maybe not getting a lot of flowers, the perennials have all their strength in their roots, and it's going to be there next year for sure.
Well, the rain's going to help these plants grow. Thank you very much. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of Growing Wisdom.